Hello, everyone. Today we are going to discuss two elements of short fiction: plot and characterization. To begin with, plot, I'm sure most of you are already aware of the things we're going to discuss. What I would like you to do is, when you have read your readings for this week, think of the story, think of Heart of Darkness that we have studied already, and see how Conrad uses the elements. How does he develop plot? How does he develop characterization? What kind of characters, for example, does he have, and how do these two elements appear again and again in other stories that we are going to study over the course of the semester? So, to briefly sum up, your textbook discusses plot, and it gives an old description that it needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then it moves on to discuss three aspects of plot that it needs to, it needs to have time, space, and action simply. And if we are going to use the terminology that is in your textbook, it talks about it's a movement in time, it's a movement in causality, and it's a movement in dramatic action. So when we talk about time, your textbook discusses it from the beginning. How was time as space and action treated by authors in the past, and how have modern authors um, experimented with it and have changed the dynamics that were considered a given in the beginning. So most authors in from Greek times believed in unity of space, time, and action, and so most works and dramatic action and dramas were constricted to small time frames, one day in a character's life, one evening. And you will see many authors, even modern authors, who have successfully experimented with that particular technique. But as we move further, you'll notice that this kind of thing, the rules, the set rules, are never really very set rules. They change over the course of time. So unified plots that focused on just a small um, portion in a day or in a character's life have given way to episodic plots. That means that the situation, the scene needs to change. It may be across a period of a few years or a few hours or whatever. In the same way, there are other plots that show flashbacks in many kinds of writing as well. All of these devices create their own particular trends in writing. You will notice that as we move towards modernist writing and as we move towards postmodernist writing, especially, the idea of movement in time has been challenged very, very thoroughly by modern authors because, again, in postmodernist fiction, especially, authors consider time to be also a construct, a social construct. So, how can we use that social construct to create a new or a different kind of story? So, that is very important. It also, when you read the story and you see how an author has developed the plot of the story, you get a little bit of an idea of what age and what time that author was writing in. Moving on, we see authors showing foreshadowing for the development of different areas in the plot. Let's move on to space or causality. When we talk about movement in causality, we are basically talking about the cause and effect. What did the character do to make another character behave in a certain way? How did the sequence of events happen? How are they connected together? Now, usually in, let's say, again, starting from ancient Greeks to later on moralistic plays and other plays, the drama was concentrated on a character's own actions or the consequences of the actions. However, if you move further, you'll see that the causality can, of course, be played with. Usually, causality and dramatic action, they go hand in hand. How does the action begin? So usually the action begins with a stable state, and then from that particular stable state, it moves on to a conflict arising, and from that conflict, it can be, development of action, and until the story reaches the climax. And then there is a going down of the action, and finally the story reaches another stable position again. So this is generally how stories are written in form, but of course modern authors have also successfully um, challenged this idea that this is how always how stories work, because they have created stories uh, that completely think about, like, they're psychological. For example, the action and everything that happens, we might say that yes, it does happen, but it happens in the mind of a character, for example. So think about how the stories develop as we read them. Then moving on from there, let's move to characterization. um, Characterization, simply put, is something that now in modern writing, authors play a lot of attention to, but it was not something that was paid too much attention in the past, because mostly plays at that time focused on heroes, big figures, kings, queens in earlier times. And the Greeks, for example, would have a very deterministic attitude towards development of characters, like already their fate has been written kind of way. For example, most Greek heroes had something called hamartia, like a tragic flaw, and that tragic flaw led to their downfall. You will see the same trend, hamartia, being present in plays by Shakespeare as well. And before Shakespeare, a lot before that, moralistic plays did not differentiate, it were mostly for moralistic reasons. um, this also leads us to how slowly from there to realist fiction, to modernist fiction, to postmodernist fiction, those ideas have developed and changed dramatically over time. Now, if you notice, the movement is towards inwards, towards the character itself. So therefore we have, like, what we call round characters and flat characters. Um, when we think about round characters, I would say round characters are those people who the author fleshes out, the author gives a lot of attention to, and they also develop over the course of the story. Flat characters are filler characters, or simply characters who don't change over the course of the story. So think about it. If you look at Heart of Darkness, which characters are flat and which characters are fully fleshed out? In the same way, which characters are static and which characters are dynamic, that means they change over the course of the story. So if you look at the stories we have read, you will notice that other than a few a couple of characters, most of the characters are flat and static characters. And what purpose does an author have for creating those characters? So for the purposes of this lecture, please focus on these two things: the characterization and plot in short fiction. And we're going to keep coming back to it. We are going to keep using this to basically evaluate how different authors over the course or span of a long period of time have used these elements of the short story to their advantage, and how have variations happened in these elements. I'll see you later. Thank you.